Hey there, welcome to Rested Mamas Talk. We're Chelsea
and Mika, your certified pediatric sleep coaches who were once exhausted mamas just like you turned into rested mamas who now have helped hundreds of families get better sleep in 3 days with an alternative to traditional sleep training.
As creators of the Association Fading Sleep Method, we teach a responsive and holistic approach. Our podcast is dedicated to sharing the journey from true parental exhaustion to thriving parenthood.
From real sleep tips from us and other experts to real stories of families just like you.
Let's get rested. Hey there, families. Welcome to another episode of Rested Mamas Talk. I am Chelsea, and I have a little special treat for you today. And it is that I think that you can, if you're watching this video, you can see that on the other end, it is not Mika. We have another special guest today. But today we're talking about everything from the crib to toddler bed, how to make that transition, what you're going to encounter. And to help me to have this conversation, I have my dear friend, coworker, cohort, if you will, Jackie. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hi, Chelsea. I'm good. Hi, listeners. Hope you all are doing well.
Yeah.
I'm Jackie. I'm a pediatric sleep coach with Rested Mama Happy Baby. And I'm also a toddler mom. I am fully in the thick of it. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I feel all of your pain somewhat, but luckily, just a few tools and techniques and products will help shape the experience, and it has for me. It's made it a lot easier. But yeah, I'm all about maternal mental health, all about child development, getting everyone to sleep better as a family, as a whole, as a unit, just healthier sleep all around. I've found that it actually builds the attachment, builds trust, and furthers the bond of the family. And I found that to be true, especially through my own experience and obviously through Rested Mama.
Yeah. And actually, Jackie, you've been with us for a little while. She's been one of our certified sleep coaches on our team, and she's just as awesome. And she's actually really great too with toddler families as well.
Yes,
I know that today it's all about toddlers. So I'm really excited to chat with you today too. And this is such a big topic. I would say that this is one of the things that we get oftentimes families are worried about this transition and what it will look like, how your child will react, what that means for us as a family. What do I need to do to prepare? So we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do, I just want to say a special thanks to our friends at Totcraft, who are the ones that especially sponsored this podcast episode again today. They have some amazing products. They're Totcraft products, including infant carriers, bed rails, toddler pillows, but they also have these amazing toddler bed rails that we're actually going to talk about here a little bit later. But please know all of their products are crafted according to the highest safety standards and by a biomedical engineer, and they're just amazing. So anyway, thank you to Totcraft for sponsoring this episode today. So Jackie, let's dive in. So before we kind of talk about specifics, I would really love to hear some of your experience with your 2 girls. So how did you make this transition, and when did you actually decide to make that transition with your older one? Was that recently? Was it a little while ago?
It was somewhat recently. I mean, I don't know, time's a little bit of a blur, as all of us moms know, but it was around, so she just turned 4, and it was around 3, maybe a little bit after 3. And we just felt like she was ready for it. We were ready. We had the crib that had a little changing table thing attached, and it was just the drawer, everything was falling apart. And we just we had moved somewhat recently, and we just were let's just we kept everything the same when we moved, but once we were I don't know, redoing the living room and stuff like that, and we were just let's
refresh.
Let's refresh and get her a cute little twin bed setup. And we had also been we had done a couple trial runs with while we traveled, we used a blow up toddler
Sure.
mattress thing. And she did really well. And, luckily, like we had really good sleep health, like ever since she was like 7, 8 months old. So like these transitions are so much easier when you have a plan and when you like stick to it. And then as they grow, you continue with that consistency.
Yeah.
So I remember like really holding my breath, and I was like really nervous about the transition because, they have full
You don't
reign of
know
the
how they're going to
house.
react. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have full reign of like I was going to say house, but I mean, really it's like their
The room.
room, ideally it's just their room. So like we made sure everything was super safe. Like we like, put, attached like a few things to the wall, like the bookcase and like certain things just to make sure she didn't climb on them. And then we like, we got her excited about like she has a blue room, and we turned it into like a mermaid room just like through the move. And so yeah, so we like made it a fun thing of like we'll do a bed cover that's like mermaid, and like it'll be fun. And then of course we got Topcraft bed rails just so it's not like so foreign to her where she's just like rolling off. So and we like pushed it against the wall in a corner, so like only one, only
some
one
barriers that it's not just
yeah
exactly.
So yeah. And
totally. And I just to piggyback on one thing that you said, it really is so much easier to make this transition when two things are the case. One, you really kind of spent time to have some really great, consistent sleep routines with your child. That is super helpful. And if you're listening to this and you're like, Chelsea and Jackie, like, I want that. Like, how do I get that? Please know we do work with toddlers. We have our full approach step by step. And if you have any questions or you want to get to know what our approach looks like, you can absolutely talk to us one-on-one. We offer discovery calls. So you can head over to our website to book that. So just know that. The other piece, Jackie, like you said, I can't stress this enough to you guys. It is so helpful, not only for you, but also for your toddler, if you have a plan going in. It is really hard for you and also for your toddler when they don't really know what to expect and it's just all sudden. And also too, you want to know how you're going to do it, how you're going to prepare, and also how you're going to react based off of things that might happen once they are in that toddler bed. So that is a big piece of advice. Like if you have a piece of paper, if you're jotting down any notes as you're listening to this, definitely put that. Make sure to have a plan moving forward within this process. I will say, Jackie, with my first, she was so you guys, my oldest is 9, so this was a long time ago. But with my first, she was totally the one where like I knew she was going to do best with me kind of going in and preparing her, helping her rearrange the room and to getting that really exciting and having it be excited for her. With my son, it actually was best if like less was more, if that makes sense. Like if I made it a bigger deal, then I think it was going to be a harder transition for him. So we're going to talk about that here in just a minute, but just know, like, keep in mind your individual child's temperament within this process. And Jackie, we talk about that all the time when we're talking about our direct clients. I think we were going to talk about this a couple of weeks ago. We were like, well, like, it's kind of different from toddler to toddler. I'm like, what is the best way to be going about these things?
Yeah, for sure. Because like they're little people at this point. I mean, they very much have their own, preference and ways of doing things. And, and I also didn't like amp it up so much that I was like, this is a huge change.
Yeah.
Buckle up. Like I was more just like, like I was like gently like showing her, transitioning her. And then
this is fun and exciting. She's a big girl.
Big girl, that whole thing. And then cool comforter. And honestly, like, she's a very strong-willed toddler, as most are, but she's a strong-willed little one. And it was, I feel very lucky. Like it was a really seamless transition for us. It really was. There was maybe a little bit of her like meandering just a little bit to like be like, they're kind of like, whoa, like I can just, I can just like go anywhere I want, and like we have our toddler approach of like how to direct them back and things like that. So like it was just a little bit of that, and then like it was,
Yeah, she understood the boundary, and that's
really did.
Yeah.
It was smooth sailing. And so, yeah. And I meant to say at the beginning, I'm a pediatric sleep coach with Rested Mama. So,
no, I knew you were. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think I
like,
mentioned that too. Yeah.
yes, you did. No, you did. But I was like, yeah. And our, what may work for our little ones, like you were saying, like personally speaking, it's nice because we can like very much speak to that. But then also like having these different clients whose babies and toddlers react to different things. Like I love giving people like, just a couple options after reading the family and then seeing how it went. And we just had a toddler family, I think just last week, that transitioned, and it was like wonderful. And they had a very similar experience of like, oh my gosh, that was like, yeah. I was so nervous, and it was great.
And yeah, you like, if you're listening to this, a lot of times it is a lot better than you think it's going to be. But we totally know how nerve-wracking it is. But yes, like Jackie said, that's 100% something that we help a lot of families with. But let's take a step back, Jackie. So let's actually talk through when is the most effective time to make this transition and when it's actually kind of needed. One of the things that I always like to tell our families, if it is at all possible, try to wait until at least about 2.5 years old to make this transition. Ideally, it'd be even better to be closer to 3, like Jackie, you were saying for your daughter. Yeah. And that's just because of where they are developmentally. Their impulse control just really hasn't quite developed younger than about 2.5. And so it's really, really hard for that child to make the decision to stay in bed on a consistent basis when they're younger. And so what can happen is if, that's the case, it just, you can have a lot more like up and down, as opposed to them just kind of seamlessly transitioning into the bed. And they also are able to just understand a little bit more of what that looks like. So if at all possible, it is best to go ahead and try to wait until that time. The only caveat here, Jackie, is when it becomes unsafe. So for example, like if your child is starting to crawl out of the crib, or we've even have some clients in the past that it's like basically they're not like nicely crawling out of the crib, they're kind of like throwing themselves out of the crib. And in that case, one, we have some tips that Jackie, if you want to go over those first to try, but if not, and then they are still, throwing themselves out of the crib, if it's becoming unsafe, then at that point, yes, we need to go ahead and transition them out of the crib. But there are a few things that we can do. So Jackie, what are some tips that, like, if a mom is listening to this and like, well, I want to transition them out because they are crawling out of the crib, what are some things that they can try first?
Yeah, so I recently had this, and it is particularly a challenge when they're hovering around 2.5, because of exactly what Chelsea just said. So, to troubleshoot that, just make sure that the crib mattress, first of all, we always do a nursery audit with you. We look at the nursery, we look at safety and all those things. So lower the crib mattress, make sure it's at the very bottom. You can remove the base of the crib if you need to and place the mattress directly on the floor, but like still within the crib rails. So that might buy you some time. You can put your little one back into a sleep sack and actually put the zipper on the back, and they won't be able to like unzip it easily. And it'll also just make it harder to climb. So if you have like particularly feral toddlers who are really wanting to like they're really wanting to explore, but like, you're not quite ready for that, like as a family, those are a couple good tips. And just side note, the sleep sack also really helps when, I don't know if Chelsea, any of your little ones went through this phase, but mine went through like a ripping off the diaper phase, like before she was potty trained at all. And so flipping that zipper around, just PS, really helped with that, because they can't
unzip. And actually, it was a couple of months ago, I gave that tip to a mom, and she was so funny, Jackie. She was like, oh my gosh, Chelsea, how have I never thought to just put it on backwards. She was like, because they can undo the zipper when they get older.
Right.
And she was like, I thought that I was just up a creek and I had no paddle. She was like, I should have just turned it around.
Yeah. She's like, here's the paddle.
Yeah.
You can swim a little further, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it might not solve everything, but it definitely helps and control that safety. And then if you've already used the above tips and like your child is still crawling out of the crib, you know, then it's kind of like, all right, now it's time to do it. And it honestly is a really good time to do it with us because we can help make that transition even easier and obviously safer as well.
Sure. Sometimes with some of the, like, I know like some of the more like trendy cribs are basically like the same level on the back and on the front. Some of the older, more like traditional cribs or like style of cribs will have the back of the crib is higher than the front of the crib. For some babies, actually, if you just like switch it around so that the lower end is against the wall and the higher end is facing out, sometimes too that can be helpful. I also know, like Jackie was saying, you know, putting the mattress essentially like on the floor but still within the crib rails. I know that stinks sometimes because some cribs don't have that ability, one, and some, like if you put it on the floor, there's kind of like that unsafe gap between the rail and the mattress. But if you're able to do that, it's a great option to do that too. So just a couple of those tips. But yeah, like Jackie was saying, if you did all those and they're still trying to climb out and it is unsafe, then yes, we need to go ahead and move in that direction to transition. So in terms of, okay, so now we figured out, Jackie, we want to go ahead and transition them, right?
Yes.
Time to do that. Now, how do I do that? When do I do that? We really want to kind of take it step by step. So what would you say is the very first thing that that you should do before you even transition your child to toddler bed?
Yeah, I mean, 100% safety. Just make sure that the room is toddler proofed and safe for like their new freedom, and, you know, have a plan of how you can prepare your little one's room going into it.
Yeah. So like things like cords, make sure to take like a good sweep of the cords. One thing you can do, I know it sounds silly, Jackie, but you can even like go down and like go on your knees and walk around your child's room to see like a different vantage point. Like, can you like see a cord or whatever? And then like you were saying earlier, you know, making sure that nothing could fall down. So, you know, attaching dressers and stuff to walls. But the biggest thing too is that if you are worried about your child rolling off of their new bed, it's a great idea to get something like the Topcraft bed rail. It does provide a really additional key piece of safety for your child. So when you make that transition, we know it can be nerve-wracking, especially for you and also for your little one at times. So with the Topcraft safety bed rail, this is really your solution to having that secure night's sleep for your child. So one of the great things about it is that, Jackie, this is my favorite thing, and I don't know if you love this when you got your Topcraft bed rail for your daughter, but I love that it's compatible with any bed size. So so whether it is a toddler bed, a crib, queen size bed, king size bed, twin, like whatever you guys, it is, it fits. So, and also, you know, please know that it has mesh fabric. It is safe. It's non-toxic, so that your child can also sleep soundly and you are reassured by that as well. It's very, very easy to install. My favorite thing that it has is it has adjustable, so you can easily put the bed rail down. So it's super hassle-free setup. And it's easy to clean, no mess, no spills. It's easily machine washable as well. I really love that. So if you are interested in the Topcraft bed rail, look at the description below this podcast, and we actually have a discount code for 15% off for you if you're looking into that. So now there are two ways to transition to a toddler bed. like with most things, there's a cold turkey way and a gradual way. So, Jackie, do you want to talk a little bit about what do I mean by cold turkey and what would you say would be that way, quote unquote, or option to transition?
Well, the cold turkey would be to, not like keep the crib in the bedroom, and just kind of like make the move and just kind of stick to it. And that actually is what we did. And it worked really nicely for us, but I know every little one's different. So the gradual way, do you want to talk more on that one?
Yeah. So the gradual way, this would definitely be for a kiddo that maybe is just like some transitions sometimes are a little bit harder for them if that's something that you observe about their personality, or they need a little bit more of a warm up to new things. So how this would work is where basically you would still keep the crib in the bedroom and still have your child go into the room and go into the crib to sleep, but you would also put their new bed in the bedroom as well. So the new bed would just be in there for about 2 nights. They wouldn't be sleeping in that new bed yet. The bed would just be in there. And then on the third night is when you would actually remove the crib and they would be going into that new bed itself. Now, one little thing here is that if your child if it's a safety thing, and that's one of the reasons why you're transitioning out of the crib at that point, I would just go cold turkey. So I would just essentially, one night they're in the crib and then you're moving the crib out and put the bed in. And then that's when that next night that you go ahead and do that. If you do have a crib where they have the option to remove one of the sides and have like a crib rail, that's oftentimes a great way to transition a child just because they're used to that mattress, they're used to that space. So if there's that option, that is wonderful. But we also know sometimes too, some parents just want to go ahead and straight to like, a double bed or something like that. So that's also an option as well. With the cold turkey, one of the things that I would recommend is still to have a conversation with your child about it. Right, Jackie? Like, we don't want it to be like a complete surprise that this is
Yeah,
what's happening.
that goes a long way with toddlers in general, and especially with something like that. I have found like giving them a little prep time or, giving them a heads up and not making everything a surprise is so helpful. It goes a really long way with them.
And actually, in our toddler approach, we actually, before we even change any part of the child's routine, right, we spend like about 2 to 3 days of doing some preparation with the child, just so that they know what to expect. Just because if they don't know what to expect or something is a big surprise, oftentimes we can just get some of those undesired behaviors, right? Not necessarily.
I'm kind of like that.
I am too. I mean,
wait, what?
Where's my bed?
Yeah.
What are you doing with my bed?
Sorry. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I just thought about that. We did have the convertible crib. So I think we did that for a little bit. And then we did the twin mattress.
Yeah, with the rail, with the top craft. Yeah, perfect. So ways you can prepare your child is if you want them to have like a new blanket, in their new bed, you can help them pick that out, but also just sitting down and having a conversation with them that, they're getting so big, they are growing so big and their bodies are just getting too big for that crib and they need to be in a big boy bed or a big girl bed. Now, one of my biggest caveats, you guys, is do not change any other part of their routine at bedtime or at nap time. So just because they're going into a new crib, or excuse me, not a crib, just because they're going into a bed does not mean that we change any other parts of their routine. Why do you think I would say that, Jackie? Why do I say that?
Because it's a hard enough transition as it is, and keeping everything else consistent will make it that much easier for them. They'll at least have some things that they know.
Yeah. Yeah. So like with my son, honestly, we had like 2 conversations about it. And then I literally, even that night I didn't really pay much attention to the fact that he had a toddler bed in there as opposed to a crib. And we literally just went through our exact same routine and I just had him get in the new bed as opposed to his crib. And it actually, for many of our families that we find, it takes them a while for them to actually understand that they can get out of the bed.
Yeah.
Like they don't put that together because they're so used to being in the crib and not being able to get out.
Yep.
So that's one
Hmm.
thing that you may be expecting. Sometimes parents always laugh at that, but it's just like it kind of makes sense that they don't even realize they can get out.
Yeah.
So what are some other things that you say to parents to expect for this transition?
Yeah, I would say like they may want to explore a little bit more once they do find that out. And like Chelsea was saying, like do expect there may be a couple nights where you're like holding your breath, you're like, oh my gosh, was that it? And then they realize that they can, move about. So having a plan as to how you're going to handle that is key. I also personally like I do like to move some of their like play toys, like ones that are, like they're ones that I know will stimulate them to like the closet or outside of the room so that they're not so tempted to like stay awake and like play.
Yeah.
So they can kind of start to empower them to make that decision of like, there's really not much else to do. I'm just going to go ahead and go
Yeah.
back in bed now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I have a million others, but
Yeah.
what are
Well,
you
I
thinking?
think that the biggest thing is just like to expect that they're going to get up. So,
Yeah.
already have that in your mind that that will
Yeah.
happen. And then if they don't, then be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But what I usually say, especially for the first night or two, is expect them at bedtime to potentially get up. I am okay with them spending a couple of minutes of just kind of like looking around and kind of exploring.
Hmm.
As oftentimes than not, they will go ahead and walk back to their bed to fall asleep. And a lot of times, if we pay a lot of attention to them getting up, that can kind of reinforce it and they will get up more. So they'll see that like if I get up, then that means that mommy or daddy will come in. So it's okay to give them a little bit of space within reason, right? Like if it's been quite some time, when I mean like,
Hmm.
15, 20, 30 minutes and they're still out of bed, then at that point, I would go back to your plan and, that you have already made to figure out how are you going to respond to them to direct them back into their bed. Okay. Um, Now, if you really want to, if you feel like your child might need a little bit more of a motivation or incentive, you can go ahead and come up with a small little reward for the first couple of weeks for them to stay in their toddler bed. If they did a really good job, then in the morning they get that incentive. And then you can work to fade that out, right? Not every morning, but then it can be every other morning and then maybe once a week and then so on and so forth. Definitely don't need that for every child, but if you find that that might be something, one that would work for your child, but also something that they may need, then you can absolutely do that. The other thing, Jackie, that we often do is, and this kind of goes a little bit to actually one of our other podcasts that we did on toddler sleep, but it's really helpful for them to just like have a set steps of their routine. And they already know that the last step is that they go in their bed and they sleep. And so just kind of giving them those visual reminders sometimes too, with either a chart or even just those verbal reminders that, okay, remember, after we do this, then when we go into our bed, then we lay down and we go to sleep, right? So just giving them a lot of preemptive communication is great.
Yeah, one other thing that popped in my mind, which is a question I get often from families, and I understand very much so where it's coming from, is just like a fear of like them being able to then open the door and like have access to the rest of the house. Other than the having a plan, the okay to wait clock, and like you said, using some sort of reward, which can also tie into keeping them in the bedroom. If they stay in the bedroom, don't wake up mommy and daddy,
Yeah.
for some families, it may be okay if they wake up a little before their, ideal time, as long as they have quiet time in there,
Mm-hmm.
and don't come out and wake mommy and daddy. Some families may want them to stay in bed to encourage, like, it depends on how early, right? Like
Yeah.
that this is
Yeah.
happening. But what are some other recommendations like you would have for?
Yeah, some families too. I mean, if you're worried about your child leaving the room in the middle of the night, you can also get like a little bell to put on their door so that if they do wake up, you will hear the bell and you will wake up and try to kind of catch them.
Mhm.
every family's kind of preference is a little bit different. There are also like the doorknob caps that you can get so that they aren't able to go through that room. But if that's not something that you feel comfortable with as a parent, that's okay too. Frankly, I did that for a couple of months with my son just because my kiddo was one of the ones that we did have to transition out earlier than I wanted because it was becoming unsafe. And so I kind of essentially just tried to make his room the crib, if that makes sense, where he really had really minimal things in his bedroom other than, his bed and a dresser and that kind of thing. So we made it so that he couldn't walk out of the room. You see some things out there, Jackie, we don't recommend, right? Like a gate, putting in the doorway. I wouldn't do that. I mean, just because they can easily climb over a gate too, and that also becomes unsafe. So I wouldn't use a gate on your child's door. But if some parents feel comfortable and some don't, and that's okay with doing like one of those doorknob caps. The other thing, please don't feel like you have to go spend money by any means, but some families, they do, there's some of those like motion sensors, kind of monitors that you can put to where like if a child gets up or out of the room, it kind of like it notifies you like on a baby monitor. So that's also, there's some products out there like that. But I always say, don't go to that yet, right? Like, don't do that unless it's an issue, right? Like, don't do that if that's a challenge right now. These are all things that you can kind of then go back and try to remediate. I always try to say, like, let's just start small. Let our kids shows us, what they can do. And then if we need to make another decision, we can. So.
And getting ahead of it really prevents you even having to deal with those other concerns, because if they already have sleep behavior when they're an infant and then they go into toddler, they really know those boundaries and they're not really as interested in crossing them, and they know what'll happen. The only thing I'll say is if you have stairs, that was like my concern, and we did have a gate at the top of the stairs.
No, for sure, and then we did too, 100%. I just get nervous about the gate being on the actual like his doorway. It gets a little,
I would definitely, one of the little knobs, or like there's like a little monkey latch or something if you have a different doorknob, and that can be helpful for a while.
Yeah, not as a permanent thing by any means, but helpful. Well, you guys, Jackie, thank you so much for chatting with me. I love having you on. I should do this more often. But please know, if you've been listening to this and you're like, Chelsea, Jackie, I want to make this transition. I don't know how to do that. I would like some support. Or if toddler sleep, honestly, is just a struggle right now. If at times hard, a challenge, if we're having lots of night wakings, anything. Please know we have been there and we completely understand, and you're not alone. We would be happy to talk with you. Feel free to go to our website, check out our discovery call option to book a call to get an intro to what we're all about. And please know too, if you're looking to continue to make your room safe, definitely think about that Totcraft bed rail. It is super, super great and very user friendly. So,
and it travels well. Just PS.
Oh yeah, it does. It like folds down. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it folds down. You can just kind of, and we traveled with it and put it in our van. We did up north. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's so good. Well, thank you again, Jackie. And please know we are always here, families. And thank you for listening in today. We'll talk to you soon, Jackie. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Rested Mamas Talk. To stay connected and get more sleep tips from us, follow us on our Instagram page at rested_mama_happy_baby. To find out how we're helping families around the world get better sleep, check out our website, restedmamahappybaby.com, or chat with us directly to learn more about our programs. Chat with you next time.